Welcome to the Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn, where purpose meets performance and leaders are built to shift legacies. I'm Dr. Sharalyn Payne, executive strategist, speaker, and the secret weapon behind leaders who drive transformation at the highest levels. Each episode delivers bold truths, power skills, and real-world strategies to help you lead with precision, show up with presence, and build the kind of influence that outlasts trends. This is the space where high-impact decisions are born, where influence is intentional, and where the bold don't just lead, they change the game. So if you're ready to rise, ready to lead, and ready to create the kind of impact that moves markets, missions, and minds, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving into a silent leadership challenge that many top performers face, but few discuss openly. You're ambitious, highly capable, and brimming with game-changing ideas. But the leader above you, they're stuck in insecurity, threatened by talent like yours, and holding tightly to control. Does this sound familiar? I'm pulling back the curtain on the 5 things I never say to insecure leaders and why. Because if you want to rise, drive change, and stay influential at the highest levels, you must learn how to lead, even when you're not holding the gavel. This episode isn't about playing small, it's about playing smart. And trust me, the most powerful people in the world know how to do this masterfully. By the end of this episode, so will you. Now that we've set the stage, let's delve into the core of today's discussion. We'll explore 5 pivotal phrases that, when used with insecure leaders, can inadvertently sabotage your influence. And more importantly, we'll unpack the strategic replacements that help you keep your seat at the table and expand your reach. And here's why this matters. According to a recent study by DDI, 69% of frontline leaders admit to being uncomfortable communicating with their bosses. That discomfort is often driven by fear of triggering insecurity, not lack of competence. So let's make sure you never shrink your brilliance or sabotage your seat again. Listen closely for 5 of my favorite phrases that I've had to unlearn to manage up and across effectively. First up, at my last company. I used to love this phrase, and I think I would say it really not even thinking about it. But this was a huge mistake, and I'm going to tell you why. Insecure leaders see this as a direct comparison, and usually they'll come up short. This triggers defensiveness, and it actually shuts down collaboration. Now, this was something that they brought me on because of what I did at my last company. And I didn't realize that saying that, though, even if it wasn't the same industry, really highlighted their insecurity. It really got them to comparing where you are, or thinking rather that you're comparing where you are here with where you were there, and perhaps they're missing the mark. So I would strongly suggest that you scratch at my last company. I once coached a senior director who mentioned her last company during a presentation to her VP. The intent, just like me in the past, was to be helpful. But her VP, he interpreted it as a power play. Do you know that he didn't invite her to another strategy session for about 4 or 5 months? That one key phrase, at my last company, triggered something in him. So here's what I've had to learn to say instead, and what I actually coached her on. One approach that's worked well in similar situation is, one approach that's worked well in a similar situation is, That shifts the focus from I've done it better or we've done it better previously to hear something that might help you win. And I love the might help you win part, right? Non-threatening. That's what we want. Second up, I'm not the gavel holder on that decision. I would be in meetings with the leaders and I would say that someone would ask me a question, and especially if it wasn't something that I agreed with. So rather than saying, I didn't make that decision, I would say, I'm not the gavel holder on that decision, or I wasn't the gavel holder on that particular decision. And I would just move forward with my conversation. But I had to learn from a leader that made her extremely uncomfortable when I would say that. And when I asked her why, because I'm not the gavel holder, or I wasn't the gavel holder on that decision, right? We're talking about leading with clarity as well as transparency. What makes you uncomfortable? And what I found was that there was a lack of accountability and responsibility. And so she didn't want to own her decisions. And so by me saying I'm not the gavel holder on that decision, it really led to her fear that someone would say, well, who was the gavel holder on that decision? Or we didn't like that decision, or whatever the case was, but it made her uncomfortable. So I had to consciously train myself not to say I'm not the gavel holder on that decision, or I wasn't the gavel holder on that decision. And so what I began to say was, how can I best support you in moving this forward? How can I best help you? Even if I was speaking to someone else about a decision. Let's move past the decision and who made the decision into how can I help and how can I support? The leader actually loved this transition because it reinforced her authority and it positioned me as a person who was there to collaborate, that I was an ally of hers, that I was there to serve, I was there to support, I was there to help, not highlight my disagreement for her decisions of what she thought or what she said, even though that wasn't the way what I was thinking, but it was what she actually heard. And that's what matters. Number 3, one of my previous leaders or a previous leader that I supported. Why this was a mistake? It's a subtle comparison, and insecure leaders read it as criticism. And of course, we know that they fear and shun criticism. So what to say instead? I've seen some leaders handle this by. This keeps it hypothetical and not personal. And here's what I want to point out with each of these phrases. A lot of times they're asking you for an opinion. They're asking me as a consultant to weigh in, right? To provide my opinion, my thoughts, my perspective, my insights, my wisdom based upon the work that we're doing. But even with that, and they may see me as an expert, how I can phrase certain things will trigger things in them. And leaders are human too. So we got to keep that in mind. So we want to ensure that when we're communicating, again, we're not giving into their insecurity. So I've seen some leaders handle this by, it keeps it, again, hypothetical, and it's not personal. It's not personal, but also it's not strictly business, which can be very intimidating to some leaders. Number 4, are you confident that, or how confident are you? Could be an alternative. But why this is a mistake, it's a direct challenge to their competence. Because we're asking, essentially, for them to think about how confident they are. And perhaps they're not confident at all. It's just a risk. And to an insecure leader, again, it's threatening, it's challenging their competence. They may be thinking, I'm not confident, or I'm 50% confident or 60% confident. And we have those perfectionists who believe that they cannot act and move until they're 100% confident. So by asking that question, how confident are you, or are you confident that, again, it's a direct challenge to their competence, and we don't want that. Instead, we want to say something like this: what's the best possible outcome you're envisioning here? Why I love this? It invites clarity without creating tension. And we don't want tension, right? We're on their side. We're on your side. So again, when we're thinking about what's the best possible outcome, or what's the best outcome you're envisioning here, now they begin to reimagine. They begin to think, they begin to ponder, they begin to communicate, and so that we can get clarity without challenging what they're saying. And then number 5, how did you arrive at that opinion? I used to say this all the time. How did you arrive at that opinion? How did you get there? And it sounds like you're setting them up to fail, is what I've heard before. Now, I don't see it that way. But again, it's how is the listener hearing what you say? Because that's a huge part of communication. So something you can say instead: walk me through your perspective. I'd love to understand how you're seeing it. You see how that's different? How did you arrive at that opinion? Can feel like you're challenging what they're saying, and it can sound like, I think that what you're saying is absolutely crazy, or this makes no sense. How'd you arrive at that opinion? And they may be thinking that you think it's not a great recommendation or idea. And you're challenging that. And leaders, I've seen a lot of the leaders I've worked with anyway, do not necessarily always love to be challenged, especially in high stakes, high complex, high profile situations. Sometimes they just want people to say yes and to go with it and to execute. So let's take a moment for a quick self-assessment. I want you to reflect on your recent interactions. Have you used any of those 5 phrases recently? What was the impact? So what was the reaction that you got? What happened? How did they respond? Did the conversation flow smoothly, or did you notice tension or resistance? And I want you to choose one replacement phrase to try this week, and observe how this small shift in communication can lead to a more positive and productive interaction, as well as relationship. You don't need permission to be powerful. You need precision in how you show up. That's it. So I have a challenge for you. Let's say that you're in a meeting and your leader shares a risky proposal. Which of the 5 phrases or something that's similar might you instinctively use without even thinking about it? I can tell you which one I would use. Which alternative would completely change the tone and shift the atmosphere? Now, how could that shift the outcome as well as your relationship? What I want you to get at and to realize is these moments make or break momentum. So choose wisely. I invite you to reflect on how using this alternative could lead to a more constructive and collaborative discussion. Remember, your goal is to maintain influence and foster a positive working relationship, even in challenging situations. So now let's recap. Insecure leaders can be challenging, but with mindful communication, you can navigate these relationships effectively. Avoiding certain phrases and choosing more constructive alternatives can preserve your influence and promote collaboration. Now, I'm encouraging you to practice because you don't unlearn these phrases that you've been saying regularly or hearing regularly overnight. This week, I challenge you to replace just one of these phrases in your next conversation and observe the dynamic shift. What did you think of today's episode? I'd love to hear about your experiences. I want you to share your stories and outcomes with me. Your insights can inspire and help others in our community. So, hashtag game changer. Final thought. Remember, influence isn't about having the loudest voice. It's about creating the deepest resonance. It's not about ego. It's about emotional intelligence. Your goal isn't to expose insecurities. It's to navigate them skillfully so you stay in rooms where decisions are made and futures are shaped. Because here's the truth. The most powerful leaders don't always hold a title, but they always hold the influence. And that's the kind of leader you're becoming right here, right now. You don't lead like everyone else, so your resources shouldn't look like everyone else's. Welcome to the Game Changers Leadership Collection for maximizing performance, potential, and profitability. This leadership collection features best practices, insights, and frameworks from my executive level work with high impact leaders across industries. It's designed to equip you with the clarity, tools, and strategic language needed to lead with credibility under pressure. Let's be clear. In high stakes rooms, executive presence isn't optional, it's mission critical. That's why I created the Executive Briefing Companion, your strategic script for navigating leadership's most defining moments. Whether you're in the boardroom, in front of the C-suite, or facing complex stakeholder dynamics, this tool helps you rise above the noise and lead with clarity, courage, and command. At its core is the 9 executive questions framework, a high impact structure that ensures your message cuts through uncertainty, aligns your audience, and positions you as the credible voice in the room. Think of this as your strategic battle card, the leadership intelligence you carry into the room that tests you most. Also included is the language of influence, your cheat sheet for persuasive, purposeful communication. These phrases and framing techniques are drawn from high-stakes boardrooms, top-tier executive coaching, and transformational leadership practices. Use this tool to strengthen your executive presence, navigate tension with calm authority, drive clarity, buy-in, and high-stakes alignment, and speak with power without overpowering. You'll also get a preview of the 10 daily power skills, the high performance behaviors that fuel the world's most impactful leaders, creatives, activists, entrepreneurs, and change makers. These are not soft skills. They are strategic habits that create undeniable outcomes. You'll be able to self-assess with the high impact leadership scorecard, find your edge, close your gaps, activate your next level. And to ground your leadership in inspiration and intention, you'll receive the power of one poster, a visual reminder that one decision, one conversation, or one action can shift everything. Finally, I'm giving you access to my mini course, 7 leadership blind spots that are secretly sabotaging your culture and success, and how to eliminate them for good. Every tool in this collection is designed to elevate how you think, speak, and lead, because game changers don't follow trends, they set standards. Download the Game Changers Leadership Collection now. It's free, it's powerful, and it's built for leaders like you. I'm Dr. Sharalyn Payne, and this is your Leadership Edge. Thank you for joining me on the Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn. Where we don't follow trends, we set them, and we don't just lead teams, we shift legacies. If today's message challenged, stretched, or inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, tag it, lead through it. Because real leaders don't just consume wisdom, they multiply it. Want to go deeper? Subscribe to the Ultra Influential newsletter for exclusive tools, behind-the-scenes strategy, and weekly mindset shifts for the leader ready to move nations, markets, and minds. Visit www.smpistrategies.com or send a note to leadership@smpistrategies.com. And if you're ready for next level coaching or consulting that positions you as the right leader at the right time in the right place, let's talk. This is what we do, and we do it with precision, power, and purpose. Remember, change isn't just something you lead, it's something you become. Stay bold, stay brilliant, stay a game changer.